Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to our studies of the best opening against d4. Today we're continuing with our Cambridge Springs defense studies from Black's perspective, and recently we have started the Cambridge Springs defense with different opportunities. We have seen the Yugoslav variation, and in the last video I've introduced to the so-called Rubinstein variation of the Cambridge Springs defense. Today we'll continue with this Rubinstein variation from Black's perspective, but with some other possibilities for white and for black, because there are I think there are certain strategic concepts that white will try to apply. He'll try to surprise you with some tricky ideas in the opening stage. So in this video, we'll solve these positional problems with some very important sidelines of the Rubinstein variation of the Cambridge Springs defense. And please check out our Cambridge Springs defense series from the beginning, part 1, part 2, part 3, and so on, in order to get a better understanding what's going on also in this particular video, because I think we have covered many important sidelines that you maybe not see in this particular video. So let's see now what's the Rubinstein variation of a Cambridge Springs defense and how we should play these lines from Black's perspective. So here, of course, the first move is the move d4, knight to f6. We can get this Cambridge Springs defense out of many different move orders. We'll play this first couple of moves a little bit faster. Here, after move c6, we have now the Slav defense setup, and after move e6, we have now the semi-Slav structure, really this beautiful triangle here of the pawns here in the center of the board. And now comes this pinning idea with the move bishop to g5. My recommendation is to first of all to go into the so-called Barman variation with the move knight to d7, protecting of course the knight to f6, which gives us always the opportunity to play freely with the queen, play somewhere with the queen on a5, queen to b6. We have really sort of a freedom with the queen. The queen is not pinned anymore, and we are not threatened by this move bishop to f6, because if that happens, of course, we can always recapture this other knight with our knight on d7, and of course we don't have to have this messed up pawn structure on the f-file. So our opponent will probably play the move e3, and now comes this Cambridge Springs defense move, which is now the move queen to a5. We get out of the pin. This move queen to a5 comes with a beautiful tempo. We want to get our bishop here on b4, and we want to also continue the pressure here around the square e4. Now comes the so-called Rubinstein variation here from white's perspective. White plays now the move knight to d2, and this was now our previous position that we have analyzed in a beautiful game that was played by Stockfish. The Stockfish engine really destroyed the dragging engine in this particular line with the black pieces. So now after move knight to d2, it's of course a slightly really compact idea here of white. White doesn't want to tolerate, of course, this pinning idea here on the star square diagonal. Is really trying to get more defenders into the game. But now, of course, the tricky part about this line is after d takes c4 that finally the fifth rank is liberated, and suddenly the bishop on g5 is hanging. And that's exactly what white wants to get in many occasions, because it seems so that something is strange about this line by white, because after bishop to f6, knight to f6, knight to c4, and knight to c4 and queen to c7, white has lost the bishop pair in an early stage of the game. But when we think about this position a little bit harder, I think white has a great compensation of the bishop pair, because first of all, the knights are very dangerous here in the center of the board. Look at this, the knight on c4 is already dancing here in the center of the board. This knight will come into the game. There are certain threats of e4, d5 breaking in the center. The bishop is powerful here on d3. So the activity of white's pieces is perfectly fine here, although white lost the bishop here. And how to play against this types of structure? Of course, white will in many occasions continue with this idea, rook to c1. It's I think a must move for white, placing the rook where already the queen is. There are always certain tactical threats, as we said, e4, d5, and maybe the c file suddenly opens, and then you have some devastating, really monstrous attacks against the queen. And we have to say it, in these structures the queen has really some issues. Where to go with the queen? The queen is paralyzed by this knight's activity. You don't have access to any of the squares, so it's really hard to play against this motif. So here in the continuation, bishop to e7, and now comes the first sideline that's I think very important to memorize. We have now the g3 sideline. There are other sidelines. There are bishop to e2 sidelines, bishop to d3, and a3 sidelines. All of these four sidelines we'll cover in this particular video. These are really separate things. We cannot play always the same move order. We cannot play always the same setup if we face these types of positions, because we should really separate these four moves. Because first of all, let's see what happens if your opponent plays the move g3. Obviously, he's going to play bishop to g2, and he's trying to hit your center here with this types of ideas. He's trying, of course, to break through here with the move e4. He's trying to keep some kind of attention around the square c6 with ideas of knight to b5, rook to c7, rook to c6, I don't know, knight to e5, knight to c6. So he's targeting really your c6 here in a brutal way. Maybe there's not immediately tension, but I guarantee you in the next couple of moves you can get really tactically destroyed by this beautiful piece activity of white. So that's why we should know how to play against this bishop to g2 method. So let's see now how we should play this idea. So first of all, we should castle, of course, securing the king is perfectly fine. Now after move bishop to g2, rook to d8, placing the rook where also the queen is, because if e4 d5 happens, then we want to have at least a new defender of the d5 square. In the continuation, our opponent would probably castle, and now a very important move, very important move, bishop to d7. Don't mess this up. In my opinion, it's simply one of the best moves here from Black's perspective, because first of all, what this move is doing, it's of course a strange move. Okay, we have really a bishop that's paralyzed by its own pawn structure, but at least this bishop is protecting the c6 weakness that we have. Maybe it's not sort of obvious weakness, but if something gets cleared on the c file, if this position explodes in the center of the board, I think you could really have many problems around the square c6. So that's why after move bishop to d7, we are at least protecting the c6 pawn, and we are preparing now to move b5. So memorize, after move bishop to g2, our main strategic goal is b5, b4, and get the hell out with the queen out of the c file with queen to b6. That's now the main strategic goal about this line with the move bishop to g2. In the continuation, your opponent is trying maybe to break and enter with the move e4, but now we hit the knight b5. After move knight to e3, don't play queen to b6 immediately. You have still time to get an extra tempo with the move b4. When the knight gets back, now we get the move, queen to b6, and then afterwards we'll play rook to c8, and finally we'll hit the center with the move c5. And notice after move rook to c8, we get also out of the range of the light square bishop. Okay, I'm saying this is still an equal game here. This I'm not saying you will win every game because you reach this position, but this is must-know theory. Rook to c8, c5, maybe afterwards you can get the c4 breakthrough, but it's very important to undermine this pawn center, this this enormous pressure that white created with his dominant pawn structure in the center of the board. And of course, still like these knights are very active. Okay, maybe we kicked away the knights from the queen side, but now they're dancing a little bit around the king side here, so you should be careful. You should, I think, study also this particular position. This should be, I think, your cornerstone position after move bishop to g2. So let's see now different opportunities. What happens here? We have again this idea, bishop to g2. We play rook to d8. After rook to c1, again bishop to d7. Many times you see also this particular idea, a3. A3 is quite tempting because a3 is doing a very important thing, and don't get surprised by this move. I got once destroyed in this particular sideline really in a brutal way because I messed up the strategy. And here after move a3, what your opponent is not allowing is of course this tempo b5, b4. You don't have access to this move anymore, but I think this move a3 is also a loss of a tempo. So that's why whenever you feel that your opponent played maybe an unnecessary pawn move, then it's maybe time to strike, because now we have opportunities to break and enter with the move c5 immediately. And now in this particular move, I think you have to play c5 in order to break now the center immediately. Although it opens your queen, your c file, and the queen could be endangered, but still there are two knights in front of the rook, so you still need at least 1-2 tempi in order to maybe open the c file, in order to make some kind of a progress. Here one game that I found in the database, you can play maybe knight to e5, but now we just play c takes d4, and after e takes d4, we just step back, and I think this is a solid game. Afterwards we go queen to b6. Okay, maybe you couldn't be endangered with some ideas of knight to b5, but still we have access to the b6 square, and I think this should be a solid game here for black. So that's why it's very important to break the position with the move c5 immediately if your opponent plays move a3. If you don't react correctly, if you play passively, then you could get destroyed with b4, b5, knight to b5, knight to, look at this, knight to e4 could happen. I'm not seeing good ways how to defend this position anymore, so that's why c5 here is a must. C5 here is must move. You have to really liberate yourself in this way. So let's see now different examples. What happens, for instance, if your opponent plays here without the move g3? In my opinion, this concept g3 bishop to g2 is not the best of ways for white to play. Actually, I like even more this idea, bishop to e2. Bishop to e2 allows you even to have access on the square f3 on this diagonal in a different way, but without messing up your pawn structure with the move g3. G3 of course is okay, but it's messing also a little bit your king side here. So that's why maybe with the move bishop to e2 you're forcing here the move bishop to f3. But now I recommend you just a tiny little really solid move here, which creates a little bit a different sideline here. You should play here knight to d7. Knight to d7 is giving us the opportunity, maybe later, not immediately, to play the move e5 or c5. It supports further this progress here. In the continuation, here your opponent will probably try this idea, f4. He will try to cement the position around the square, and actually c5 is not good here. We have to say it. C5 is not working. This tactical idea is not good because you get the d5, and look at this. Finally, the knights are dancing, and this is destructive here for black. Black is losing the game, I think, for sure. But after move f4, we should keep it calm. Okay, your opponent play now the move f4. Okay, he can do so. We play now bishop to e7. He castles, and now we can also castle. And for instance, if he tries maybe some ideas of e4 now to create really this massive pawn center, now it's time to again hit with the move b5, because now we can, I think, kick away again the knight with the move b4. Or the other good opportunity is also to play rook to d8 and maybe afterwards hit the pawn structure with the move c5. But I think it's very important to again have this opportunity, b5, b4, and then queen to b6, and I think you're pretty solid. Although white has some fun here with his pawn storm, I guarantee you this is the way to go. This is, I think, a playable line also for black. So you see, okay, white can create in this types of structure a pawn storm. He can do so, but with the move, with the preparation knight to d7, keeping the position compact around the king, but also in front of the king, queen, we can again go with his ideas b5, b4, queen to b6, and maybe then afterwards finally breaking the position with move c5. What I've seen also as a very important concept here is this move. Instead of this move, bishop to e2 and bishop to d3 can be played, and you can say now, okay, dude, what you're talking about, this is nothing spectacular, just another move by the bishop. It's nothing different to this move. Actually, this move bishop to d3, it's really hard to defend, because the strategic goal here of white is to play f4, knight to e5, and then queen to h5 in some occasions. If the queen comes here, then with the support of the light square bishop, you could get destroyed on light squares. In some occasions, after move f4, rook to and kingside castling, rook to f3, rook to h3 will come into the game. So it's not so easy to defend this position after move bishop to d3. It's not the same story, because now our idea to go here, knight to d7, is not working in my opinion here, because after move f4 that white will of course play. If you try, of course, break the position with the move c5, we have talked about this idea as d5 is destroying black for sure, and I'm not seeing good ways how you should defend this position. You can play, of course, bishop to e7, but look at this now, knight to e5, and here, in my opinion, white has a dominant position in the center of the board with this light square bishop, with the queen activity, kingside castling, rook to f3, rook to h3. As I said, I would not love to play anymore this game from white's perspective. So that's why after move bishop to d3, I think again we should keep it calm with bishop to e7 after kingside castling, and now rook to c1. Now again, I think we can break the position with the move c5. c5 is very important in order not to allow here white to play this grip with the move f4 and then knight to e5. So I think this is the way to go. Your opponent will probably try this one, d takes c5. Now we can pick up the queen, and as I said, he has to open the position somehow. If he moves somewhere, the knight will just get out with our queen. We can have many good squares for the queen. We can get the queen maybe even to the d file. Trading off the queens on the d file is now, I think, our normal idea, and then afterwards we could continue the game with a beautiful bishop pair. But I think after queen to c5, nothing spectacular here for white. In one game that I found in the database, here it was Sigalko versus Michaelis. Here e4 was played, but now here black played again this beautiful maneuver, knight to d7, knight to e5, knight to e5 cements the position here. White tried a beautiful tactic, but now after knight to d3, knight takes e7, we have queen to e7. After queen to d3, the game was pretty much equal, and both players agreed to a draw after a couple of moves. So, as I said, let's go back. If you get challenged by the move g3, go into this c6, b5, b4 methods. If your opponent is trying this a3 method, you see that was very fast, then we have always this opportunity to break and enter with the move c5. If he goes with bishop to e2, keep it calm. Also knight to d7, rerouting the knight, and maybe in some later stages hit the pawn with the move e5, but be careful, as I said, with bishop to e7 first, kingside castling, and then maybe we can afterwards also play b5, b4, and after move bishop to d3, as we said, this is very hard to handle because your opponent will try this grip on dark squares, f4, knight to e5. So that's why we have to be fast again with the move c5. We should break this idea, we should paralyze this idea and open the position as much as we can, because we're the one that we have the bishop pair. So of course we should also consider the position like this, because it's simply time to get use of it, of course, in the continuation of the game. So okay, I hope that we have solved many positional problems of the Cambridge Springs defense. In my opinion, it's really brilliant opening, and you see, I'm not guaranteeing you that you will win every game that you play. Of course, in this types of position, of course, you have to have some tactical abilities. You have to have some endgame skills. But I think it's a decent setup that you can go from on, and I think you have good success. At least I think you're playing now 12, 13, 14, 15 moves without calculating so much, because I think the strategic positions that you get are really solid, are really playable here from Black's perspective. So in my opinion, the Cambridge Springs defense is simply one of the best openings from Black's perspective. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed our study. As I said, this is not our last video of this opening. Please study it hard. If you have also problems about some particular sidelines that we haven't covered maybe in this video, please check out our Cambridge Springs defense from the beginning, and also check out our other Queen's Gambit decline studies, because in that studies we have covered many opportunities, many sidelines from White's and from Black's perspective in the Queen's Gambit decline. Here's the link of our playlist. Please have fun and check it out. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say. Chess is the best, of course.